It's gone 2 o'clock. And welcome to the Housing Services PDSP Policy and Development Scrutiny Panel. It's Thursday, 5th of February 2026. A few opening remarks to make. Today's meeting will consider the report of Housing Revenue Account Budget 26-27 to 27-28 and the rent levels 26-27 and its longer financial term plan. A report on the Housing Capital Investment Programme for 2026-27 to 27-28 will also be considered. Of those matters, it is essential to step in the process Council has to put in place to develop, agree and set its Housing Revenue Account HRI budget, Housing Capital Investment Programme. Considering this detail at this PDSP meeting means that West Lothian residents and tenants can see what is being considered before the Council makes a decision on HRI budget, rent levels and a capital investment programme. It also means that the organisations and partners who are entitled to be at the table, the PDSP table, can take part in the discussions and have their say, and their views noted and taken into account later by councillors. The umbrella organisations are entitled to send representatives to all the PDSPs and the recognised trade unions, Senior People's Forum, the Youth Congress, any recognised umbrella organisations, representing the interests of the community councils and the recognised voluntary sector, Interface in West Lothian, the Race Forum and Faith Forum. The council leader has intimated that all elected members will be invited to the PDSPs, at which budget settings for 26-27 will be considered. PDSPs can agree to more participants, and I would suggest that additional elected members in attendance at today's meeting be allowed to participate. I trust the panel will agree. There is a big picture to the Council's finances and pressures on the resources and services. It's hoped that this PDSP will concentrate on the services that are relevant here so that they can get detailed consideration they deserve. That's the job of the PDSPs have been asked to do. We have council officers here today to take note of the discussions and the points made by the councillors and the representatives taking part. There will be no motions, amendments or voting at the PDSP. Points made through the comments will be noted and they will be used for a section of full council budget setting report about the PDSP says. We will go through the agenda in the usual way. I will introduce reports and ask officers to speak to them. More than one officer might speak where there is specialised issues involved. Then I'll invite questions from anyone at the table in turn. If you have questions, please let me know, so as well as lead officer will present the reports. There are officers present who will be able to answer questions on the detailed contents of the reports. From there, I will ask for comments, and everyone will have a chance to say if they're saying the context of the report. Comments made, and noted and reported. Expressing your comments about the budget measure the best way to influence the decisions later. I hope everyone will take part in the whole process through a constructive, respectful meeting. Okay. Is there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Robert DeBold, with Councillor Pauline Orr substituting. And Chair, I can also confirm that Councillors Andrew Maguire, Jim Dixon and Sally Patel are connected to the meeting remotely.
Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest from any of the members? Councillor Mick.
Thanks very much, Chair. Although I don't sit in this panel, I think it's remiss if I don't mention that I am a tenant of West Lothian Council. However, it doesn't amount to any interest, so it's just a transparency statement. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And the order of business as can be confirmed the draft minute of replacing previous House Service panel, scrutiny panel, held on the 18th of December 2025. Agreed? Okay, thank you. And now can we move on to item 5? It's the performance report. That's Alison Smith.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform the panel on levels of performance for housing, customer and building services for Q3 2025 to 26. Section D2 sets out the performance updates with Appendix 1 providing further details on the 14 performance indicators, of which 12 are green, 1 amber and 1 red. Section D3 provides details and explanation for this indicator being red and relates to the homeless service spend. To conclude, Chair, the performance information provides the panel with a summary, status and actions the service is taking to address put performance is below target, and recommendation, Chair, is for the panel to note the performance on housing, customer and building services key performance indicators in Q3 2025-2026 and determine if further action or inquiry is necessary. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take questions and with support from colleagues from the service today.
Thanks, Alison. Is there any questions to Alison? Councillor Adamson.
Yep, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Alison. On page 7, it talks about the responsive repairs where appointments were kept. Now, it talks about successfully attending all appointments, but does that also mean successfully completed the jobs on those appointments? Just wanted clarification on that particular point. I mean, it's an excellent target, and it's I mean, sitting at 97% is excellent, but unless the job's done, that information isn't forthcoming in that particular statistic.
Okay, Grant, can you?
Thank you, Chair. This performance indicator just for attendance when there's been an appointment made with our tenants to carry out a responsive repair. This does not mean that the job gets completed fully. There is another PI within this suite that outlines that.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. So it's part 1 of a part 2.
Anybody else?
Yes, thank you. On page 21, and it's where there is a red traffic light, and it says that there's been a large drop in property storage costs, which is being investigated. This does not reflect the portfolio of property and storage. Can I get some more information on that? Does that mean that come Q4, which we're currently in, that's going to have a huge difference, an increase? Is that what you're investigating?
Chair, in terms of that PI, there's been a couple of activities at play that may contribute to this. The council's storage provider has changed hands, so it may just be that there's been a lag in invoicing, or it may be that there's a legitimate drop in the need for storage from homeless applicants. That's what's been investigated, and ensuring that there's no unexpected costs by digging into that a bit deeper. It may just be that there's been less need for storage, or it could be an administrative handover function that has gone amiss in the handover to a new provider.
Right, okay, but you're not expecting any nasty surprises?
Hopefully not.
Okay, thank you. That's me, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Anyone else? Councillor Rowan.
Thanks, Chair. The question I had is again on page 21, and it's around the void rent loss figure of 360,413.76. What is causing the bottleneck in void properties that is resulting in this figure?
Sarah.
Chair, it's actually the opposite of a bottleneck. We've had increased focus on void turnover. That means that there's more voids coming into the mix. As you know, with temporary housing, we have the statutory duty to set up furniture in all temporary accommodation. So that's brought the additional costs on, which is part of the void figure, because that's part of void set-up costs.
Thank you. And just a wee supplementary question to that, we're talking about furniture or temporary housing. Is that always bought new, or do we reuse? Where we possibly can in order to save money there? I know some things probably can't be reused, but if they can.
You know.
Sorry, Chair, seemed to be a button issue there. And in terms of the setup for temporary accommodation, obviously we've got a keen eye on making savings where we can, but there is a standard in terms of the quality of furniture. So part of the void is that we undertake the setup in line with the statutory setup costs that we have, the statutory setup that we've agreed in terms of the standard. We do also allow tenants who don't have anything of their own to take furniture with them if they don't have a bed, for example. So Grant may be able to add to this in terms of the actual works that go on, but the service does take a view on every property that we go into as to what could be reused. There are some items that we don't reuse for hygiene reasons.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? No? Any comments? Councillor Adamson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, overall, the KPIs are actually very good. And I just want to bring into context the fact that there's a lot of talk about the historic rental debt. And I do understand it is historic, but the current tenants are maintaining paying of rent at 94%, and that's on the collection. So I just want to note that that is okay. It could still be better, but it is still good, all things considering. So I just want to point that out. But thank you.
Thanks, Alison. Councillor Roth.
It was just to point out something else to note actually and comment on, and that is in this paper, homeless services for the quarter have risen. That they're higher than the same quarter last year. So it just shows the kind of the situation that we're in just now, and how we need to, and why we need to be looking at it closely and doing everything we can to make things better, or at least sustain that level so that it doesn't get any worse. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other comments? Bonnie?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank all the housing staff for the work they're doing under extremely difficult circumstances. One of the things being that's difficult to control, if not impossible, is the homeless cost, which the council has just got to absorb. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tony. If there's no other comments, the recommendation is to note the performance paper. Tony? Agreed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on to item 6. It's property turnover.
This report informs council panel of the council stock turnover for Q3 of 25-26, and members are asked to note the service performance and current levels of activity relating to letting for the quarter in this financial year. In particular, the increase in property lets for Q3 when compared to Q2. Of the 46 communities in West Lothian, there were 16 areas which had no properties available for let throughout the quarter, and 67% of all lets were allocated to people who are homeless. The number of permanent lets for the period was 146 compared to 152 in Q2, and the increase in available lets as a result of there being a higher turnover of properties through the focused void work of the service. The detail of all lets, their area, property sizes are provided in detail in Appendix 1 and 2, and council stock figures by ward are detailed in Appendix 3. The communities that had the highest number of lets overall were Armadale and Ladywell, Aileyburn, Fauldhouse and Whitburn. Generally, we do find that the same areas have low turnover available of stock for relet. These are areas of very high demand from our applicants with low numbers of council stock. And there were 8 communities only had 1 property available for let, and as mentioned, 16 having none at all. D2 sets out property type and size, and as reported to previous committees, larger house sizes remain exceptionally challenging for the service in terms of available lets, and there's significant demand for these. Over the period, we had 2 5-bedroom lets and 1 4-bedroom property. D3 sets out the percentage of lets to groups as defined under our allocations policy, and as mentioned, homeless applicants made up the highest proportion of all available lets. There is a link in the report which provides access to monthly data per ward in terms of all letting activity and the council stock in that area. This is also available to the public. Chair, I would ask that members note the activity of letting in the service for the quarter and the increase in available lets overall, and that there continues to be a range of communities where there's no vacant property movement at all. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Sarah. Is there any questions for Sarah? Any comments? No. Thanks for the paper, Sarah. There's a lot of work going into this for you and your team as usual. It's very informative. Thanks very much for that. And now we'll move on to item 7, housing revenue budget account 26-27, 27-28. I think it's you, Joe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to provide the panel with an update on the proposed HRA budget for 2026-27 and 2027-28, an associated rent strategy, as well as the proposed HRA budget, rent and service charge for 2026-27. The report advises of the proposed 3.5% per annum rent strategy and the financial plan for the 2-year period, which will fund service needs and the Housing Capital Investment Programme, and also the associated HRA revenue budget of $70.109 million in 26-27. Under Section 25 of the Housing Scotland Act 2001, the Council has a statutory duty to consult with its tenants on its rent policy, and formal consultation took place over November and December of last year. I can advise that the consultation responses indicated that the majority of tenants who responded favoured a 3.5% per annum increase. The current average weekly rent in West Lothian is £92.20. Affordability of rent remains a priority for the Council in a bid to ensure that rents remain at good value when compared to the wider housing sector. There's no formal guidance on how to define an affordable rent. However, it is suggested that when housing costs exceed 30 to 35% of household income, the cost is judged to be unaffordable. If the proposed 3.5% rent increase is approved by Council, based on the latest stock report, the average weekly rent charge for council homes in 2026-27 will be £95.42 and £6.83 for garages. The gross rent increase in associated average rent is calculated to equate to 20.8% based on a household income where a full-time employee receives the national minimum wage and therefore is well below that 30 to 35% threshold. A 3.5% per annum increase will also enable the delivery of a balanced HRA revenue budget, allowing high-quality housing management services to be maintained for our tenants and continued investment in our housing infrastructure. The proposed rent increase and resultant rent levels compare favourably with other Scottish councils and RSLs. The panel should also note that if rents do go up by 3.5%, that the eligible rent on which the housing benefit calculation is based will also go up by 3.5%, so those on full benefit will not suffer financial detriment. The DWP landlord portal shows currently that 7,652 council tenants are in receipt of universal credit and or housing benefit, and those in receipt of full housing costs will be funded to meet the cost of any rent increase. The proposed 3.5% per annum rent strategy will continue to support the efficient management of the council's housing stock and tenancies, with customer-focused services delivered by the local housing teams, as well as supporting investment in existing stock and also the creation of new housing supply. It's planned to spend £70.019 million during the financial year 2026-27, and this sum will be spent on housing management, intensive housing services, rent collection, reactive maintenance and cyclical checks on properties, as well as capital financing charges and other administrative and support costs. Council is conscious of the ongoing wider cost of living pressures which our tenants face, and measures are in place within housing services and the advice shop to provide specific guidance and support to tenants and to signpost them to available supports for funding and assistance. The Council continues to actively engage with tenants to maximise income from tenant rents, and as at January 2026, the in-year cash collection rate for rent income remains very high at 96%, as tenants continue to prioritise paying their rent. As set out in section D7 of the report, although the current rent strategy allows for a balanced budget in the current year, the pressure on the funding available from rent income for the capital investment programme continues to increase, and the contribution in the current year has reduced. The level of reserves as at 31st March 2025 was £926,000. There are a number of risks and uncertainties that could impact in the assumptions which are made in the revenue budget, and as such is not proposed to use any of the reserve to fund the programme. The panel should note that there's an integrated relevance assessment and consumer duty assessment. These have been undertaken and have been included within the report. In conclusion, Chair, the proposed rent strategy and HRA budget provides a financial plan incorporating 3.5% rent increase, which will allow the Council to continue to provide value for money services to our tenants. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Julie. Any questions for Julie? Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. The 96% current collection rate was there's a target that try and get it up to 98%. How does that compare to registered social landlords?
Chair, that's not information that we have to hand. It's not information that's readily shared. However, we perform well compared to our other local authority comparators.
Any other questions? Councillor Rowe.
Thanks, Jill. I've just got a wee question from page 5 where you're talking about the rental increase in housing stock numbers, which will generate additional income. Do we know how much that additional income will be to the council? All of these properties pay the increase.
Julie.
Chair, the expected increased income from these properties has been taken into account in the budget model. I don't have the specific figures relating to the additional properties, but we could provide that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Any comments? No. Thanks for that, Julie. A lot of information. Did you note this paper and the previous paper, which I forgot to note?
Chair, sorry, Sally Pattle's looking to come in, I think.
Oh, sorry. Sally.
Yes, sorry. It's difficult. I think I've got a slow connection this afternoon, so sorry, Chair, for being a wee bit late. It was just a very quick question, if I could, and it is about the proposed rent increase of 3.5%. I just wondered, Julie, when you went out to the tenants, was that the only option that you gave them, or did you say, you know, if you agree with 4.5%, this is what we can give you. If you agree with 5%, this is what we can give you.
Chair, the specific question asked of our tenants was, are you happy with the rent strategy agreed in February 2023 for a 3.5% rent increase over a 5-year period?
So you didn't give them any options?
Chair, at the beginning of the 5-year rent strategy, there were a number of options presented to our tenants. The preference was for 3.5% for that 5-year rent strategy. But when the consultation was issued this year, Council Executive agreed on the 11th of November last year that the question asked would be, are you happy with the rent strategy agreed in February 2023?
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Julie.
Okay, thanks very much. Can we note the housing revenue budget account and the property turnover, which I forgot to do the last time? Noted, Tony? Yeah, thank you. And can we move on to item 8, that's a capital investment programme, Julie?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to advise the panel of the proposed 2026-27 to 2027-28 housing capital investment programme, including the proposal to purchase up to 15 additional new build properties and a minimum of 20 additional open market acquisitions using savings identified within the capital programme, and to note the scope of the works to be undertaken by Building Services under the terms of the Best Value Framework. The programme will see a total investment of £65.738 million over the 2-year period, with significant investment in the creation of new homes and a strong focus on the maintenance of quality standards across the housing stock. Section D3 of the report notes that there have been savings in the energy efficiency budget as a result of the delay in implementation of the Heat and Buildings Bill, and also notes that an opportunity has arisen for the purchase of up to 15 new build properties. It's proposed that the savings identified, along with the benchmark grant funding from Scottish Government, are used to purchase these 3 and 4 bedroom properties in 2026, and also to purchase a minimum of 20 open market acquisitions spread over 2026 and 2027. The proposed capital investment programme is set out in section D4 of the report and is based on recent reports to Council Executive on the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, the Local Housing Strategy, as well as the Housing Rent Consultation and Capital Investment Strategy, which have all outlined the proposals to be taken forward in relation to how new housing supply and housing infrastructure can be delivered. The proposed investment programme is summarised in Table 1 on page 3 of the report, and the individual projects comprised within each project heading are listed within Appendix 1 to the report. Further detail on the work encompassed within the programme is set out in Appendix 2. The proposed programme sees the continuation of the capital investment approved by Council in February 2025 with adjustment to reflect the 24-25 outturn and carry forward approved by Council Executive in June of 2025. Funding for the programme will largely be met through borrowing and CFCR funded through Housing Revenue Account budget and also supported by Scottish Government grants as set out in section D5 of the report. All aspects of the Housing Capital Investment Programme are geared towards securing best value for the Council and for our tenants, and the review of the Housing Capital Investment Programme for the 2-year period has been undertaken to determine which works are to be carried out by external providers and which are to be undertaken by our in-house building services, with a view to the Council's best value framework. The outcome of that exercise will be kept under review at regular intervals over the duration of the programme and tested through the best value framework. It's proposed, as set out in section D6, that specific forms of work are undertaken by Building Services. The panel is asked to note that an integrated relevance assessment has been undertaken and is attached as Appendix 3 to the report. The proposed Housing Capital Investment Programme forms a key part to the longer-term approach to asset investment and planning, and also considers the expenditure required to improve and extend the Council assets for future years for our tenants. In conclusion, Chair, the report sets out a proposed capital investment programme that will continue to deliver on the new build programme, but also deliver significant investment and maintain and improve the existing housing stock. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that very much, Julie. Any questions for Julie? Councillor Adamson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Julie. Tucked away on page 15, it's not tucked away, it's the first paragraph about the RAC remediation and removal. So it says that we'll continue 26-27 and scheduled to complete early in 27-28. Is that all the entire council housing stock that were affected by RAC? And of those houses, how many of the tenants were moved out while the work was being completed so that they can then return back to their own homes?
Marjorie?
Thank you, Chair. In answer to the first question, yes, that will conclude the RAC remediation work on the council housing stock by the end of that period. And in relation to the tenants being decanted, at present, we're decanting each tenant on a rolling basis while the work's undertaken. Currently, that estimate is for 2 weeks while the work's been done and then back into their property. So all of the tenants ultimately will be decanted, but it will be done. We have got decant houses in each of the areas specific to the project in order that people will remain within the neighbourhood that they're in while the work's taking place.
Okay, thank you. And can I follow that with a supplementary? Yeah. Thank you. So around these houses, obviously there's homeowners involved, and we're still unable to get funding from either the Scottish Government or from the UK Government. So in terms of that, is there any chance that the council work that's being done in the council houses can be offered as a service to homeowners at all?
Chair, the provisions of the use of the Housing Revenue Account and Housing Capital Investment Programme don't permit allowing private tenants to undertake work that's been coordinated and arranged by the council unless it's in mixed tenure blocks. So where there are mixed tenure flats, then we will seek to engage and operate on that basis. There's nothing to prevent private homeowners from engaging themselves with the contractors who are on site and coming to an arrangement directly with them, but it's not permissible for us to arrange that on their behalf.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor.
Thanks. A couple of questions. First one I think will be for Marjorie, just picking up on the RAC situation. How many sites are we working on at any one time? I know that you're working on Lithgow because that's my ward, but are any other sites being worked on at the same time?
Chair, yes, as I mentioned, it's a rolling programme. Currently we're working in 2 areas and then it will likely remain as 2 areas. So once finished in the Lithgow area, work's already started, commenced in Broxburn, and then the work will be completed in Lithgow, Broxburn and Bathgate. That's the general plan for the work at the moment.
And how many properties are we using for decant at the moment, and are they existing properties that are set aside for decants, or are they additional ones that have had to be included because of the RAC work, so that you've still got the same baseline for, you know, if there's a fire in a property and somebody needs to be decanted?
Chair, there's been some work undertaken to specifically identify some decant properties within those neighbourhoods. So by and large, they are actually properties where work has been required to be taking place. So we've undertaken that work in advance, and then that work on those properties being done, it allows the tenants to see the work that's been done in the completed project as well. So it gives some comfort to tenants in terms of what work has actually will be undertaken within their own properties, and that work that's been working quite well.
Thank you for that, Marjorie. That's good. And the only other question I had was in relation to the table on page 11, open market acquisition. See that for 23, 24, 25, it was 50 units, and 26, 27, 28, it's 38 units. I just wondered why there was a reduction, or if it's a reduction because we're looking at trying to purchase larger sized properties to bring in to the housing stock, as Julie mentioned earlier, sort of like 3, 4 or 5 bedroom.
Chair, the numbers of open market acquisitions are simply on the basis of what available budget there is. We have actually increased the open market acquisitions. The 38 that are included within the proposed programme are actually an addition. So that was an additional 20 that's mentioned within the report, and then another 18 which we brought into programme. Initially, as part of the original programme, we only had 50 identified, but we have actually managed to either make savings elsewhere or indeed purchase properties for slightly less. So that tends to allow us to flex that programme as much as we can. So we are actually delivering more than we had anticipated. It's just 30 over those 2 years vis-a-vis this
confused. So thank you for explaining that. It wasn't too clear when I read the table there. That's me, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Maguire.
Councillor Maguire.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I had a couple of questions. Can you hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, perfect. I had a couple of questions on the open market acquisition and the potential new builds. With the potential new builds, would I catch Julie right there that we're supposed to be 3 and 4 beds? I just wondered, the paper says up to 15, it will definitely be 15, and if we know yet what the site will be, and then in the open market acquisition, again, I wondered where we were hoping to try and purchase them just be across the county as when they were, if we could get some.
Julie.
Chair, at present, I think we prefer not to indicate the site that's been made available yet, because commercial discussions are still to take place around the purchase of the new builds, but it is an opportunity that has arisen for larger properties, and that's why we're pursuing that at present. But we prefer to wait until we've conducted some more discussions with the particular developer before that information is made public. In terms of and that's just not to prejudice any commercial contract discussions. In terms of the open market acquisitions, what we will always do is we do look at the overall demand across West Lothian initially at the beginning of the financial year, and we do then work with our colleagues across the service to purchase properties in particular areas of demand. However, we will do that for a period usually of about 4 months. If indeed we're not getting properties in those areas of high demand, then we will widen it out to areas across West Lothian. And we haven't scoped out yet this year what that would look like for 26-27.
Sure, that's great. Thanks much, Lee. I suppose a supplementary question, I understand the market sensitivities about that. If we weren't able to complete on those 15 new builds, would we then look to have that extra money invested in an open market acquisition scheme? Would that be most likely solution?
Yes, sure. That's we will look to put it into new supply, and hopefully maybe something else. But in terms of new supply, so it may be that there could be other new builds that we might manage to look at as opposed to open market acquisitions, but it'll certainly remain in new supply.
Perfect. Thanks, Marjorie. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Any other questions? None. Any comments? Pauline?
I just wanted to make a point in reference to page 4, where we're talking about AWAB's law and against the damp and the mould, and just to say, I think it's a very positive move that we're now including this and looking at introducing some timescales and expectations for repairing mould and damp in properties. It's been needed for a long, long time, and I hope this new development will provide the mechanism needed to improve the living standards of a lot of our tenants throughout the constituencies. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. Anybody else? Councillor Boyle?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd just like to say to the Housing staff, pleased to see the work in Armandale Road is going to get scheduled. It's very welcomed. But also a thank you to the briefings that you give the councillors who have RAC affected houses in their ward. They're welcomed as well. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Maguire?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say well done. I think this sounds positive, particularly that we're looking to identify some 3 and 4 bedroom properties. I know from my inbox how much demand there is for them across West Lothian. So I think that's really exciting. It's also exciting that we've been able to make savings elsewhere, bring another 20 properties back into council supply. So I'm huge welcome for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. There's nobody else. They just said we'd recommended we note 1, 2, and 3 of the recommendation. Read. Okay, thank you. And we can move on to item 9. It's the affordable housing programme. I think that's Marjorie.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the panel with the Q3 performance for the affordable housing programme in West Lothian. The overall programme is detailed in section D2 of the report, with council house programme including 427 houses. That's an increase of 44 from the original minimum target, and that does reflect the continuing priority given to ensuring maximisation of new supply programme budget. As a result of ongoing review and monitoring of the strategic local programme, including additional council housing at Winchborough, previously reported and registered social landlord developments, an overall total of 1,910 additional affordable homes will be delivered over the programme period. This exceeds the original approved minimum target of 1,621 by 18.5%. Section D3 and D4 includes a progress update on the programme since the start of 2022-23 to the end of quarter 3 25-26, with a total of 1,386 affordable homes completed or acquired. This is an increase of 23 in the last quarter and 178 completions so far this financial year. Council allocations make up 50% of all tenants allocated to new housing developments by registered social landlords. Section D5 provides detail on the current progress of houses under construction and within the programme, with 533 homes currently under construction across 9 sites. 4 sites are being developed by the Council, comprising 128 houses. Section D6 provides detailed progress on the sites within the Council's new affordable housing programme. All projects are on site now and all houses in the Council programme will be complete by summer this year, 18 months in advance of the end of the approved capital programme, demonstrating ongoing priority in getting new houses finished and occupied. The project at Ammonvale Crescent in Livingston is progressing well, with the first phase of supported housing due for completion in March this year. This is the first modular housing development for the Council and the first social rented development using stackable factory-built modular units, and was developed as a pilot project to assess the benefits of modular housing may have as a method of construction. Appendix 1 to the report indicates all the sites identified for development by both the Council and the registered social landlords. There are, however, ongoing risks to the affordable housing programme, in particular the continued uncertainty of future funding, which is detailed in section D7 of the report. Construction prices continue to increase, with the average cost of house building now significantly higher per unit than pre-pandemic. The recent Scottish Government announcement of multi-year grant funding is welcome and will allow future planning of new supply projects to be made. However, the Council and RSLs will need to assess the overall affordability of new build council housing as part of any future planning within the context of investing in existing stock and future rent strategies. In conclusion, continued good progress is being made in the delivery of the programme, with 1,386 units complete to the end of quarter 3, which represents 85.5% of the overall minimum target. And I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Thanks for that, Marjorie. Any questions for Marjorie? Councillor Adamson.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Marjorie. It's welcome additions. What I'm trying to understand is on the various different developments. Mentions family-sized homes, which is hugely needed, but also you have like 4 bungalows, 5 bungalows. When it comes to bungalows, am I correct in assuming that these are normally adapted housing and accessible housing for people with disability issues and that kind of thing? And are they built with someone in mind, or do they get built and then they are allocated to a person whose needs will be suited to that particular property? How does that work in reality?
Chair, where it's bungalows particularly, they're either built to full wheelchair accessible standards or to accessible standards, so ambulant accessible standards. So it may not be full wheelchair accessible, but everything's on the level. Wet floor showers are considered. In addition to that, when we're building cottage style flats, we tend to request that the ground floor flats within those are, we have wet floor showers, for example. Now what that does is that gives flexibility in terms of the allocations process. They're not built with a specific individual in mind. They are then the process of allocation is then gone through after that to match the needs with people's own personal circumstances.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, Alison, thank you. Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. More interested in the funding from Scottish Government. Is that the funding that you're saying is going to be unpredictable in the future?
Chair, well, the Scottish Government announced multi-year funding a couple of weeks ago now, so we have an indication of what the overall funding for Scotland will look like for the next 4 years, but we are awaiting what that funding will look like specifically for West Lothian. So at present, we still don't know exactly what that funding will be. However, it is welcomed because we should get an announcement. We hope we would receive some more detail on that within the next couple of months, in which case we can then plan out that overall 4-year programme in conjunction with Scottish Government, and that will be done in parallel with the Strategic Housing Investment Plan as well, Chair.
Yeah, carry on.
How much of that money that we get from Scottish Government do we actually hand out to registered social landlords?
Chair, there's a format in place which I'm happy to share. It's within the public domain in terms of Scottish Government. This current year, West Lothian's received, I think, just about 18 million. It's detailed in the report in terms of what has come to West Lothian, and we did secure that. That includes additional money that was secured for acquisitions. That money is for all of the registered social landlords and the council. In broad terms, for each and the grant funding comes through, and that's based on benchmark. But in broad terms, for each pound that the Scottish Government grant funding comes for construction work, it's about £2.50 or £3 of capital investment needs to come from either councils or registered social landlords. That's broadly the calculation for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Any other questions or comments? None? Okay, thank you. Can we note in the recommendations 1, 2 and 3 in the paper? Right. Okay, thank you. And now we can move on to item 10. Home Energy Efficiency Programme. Marjorie?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the panel on the progress made in the 2025-26 Home Energy Efficiency Programmes and to provide details on the proposed programme for 2026-27. Sections D1 and D2 include detail on the various sources of funding which forms the HEAPS area-based scheme and the external wall insulation programme to streets of mixed tenure stock. By the end of April, a total of 1,599 privately owned properties will have received external wall insulation through the HEAPS funding, whilst an additional 802 council properties have received external wall insulation as part of capital upgrade programmes. Homeowners are required to pay a contribution to the EWI work as the funding does not meet the total cost of EWI. Appendix 1 provides information on where the properties are and also the areas that further investment will be possible subject to funding being available. The panel is also asked to note that the EcoFlex scheme will end on the 31st of March, and as such the plan is to wind that down from the 28th of February to allow us to assess any applications before the end of March. Information and progress on the HEAPS ABS programme in 2025-26 is contained within section D3, and good progress has been made across the programme. Sign-ups were successful with a target of 75 homes achieved, receiving EWI and ventilation measures, and in addition, this year's specification again was extended by topping up loft insulation to 300mm when required, and to address increased ventilation by installing kitchen and bathroom extractors where most moisture is produced in households. Knightsbridge and Livingston will be prioritised for the 2026-27 programme using the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation to accurately identify the streets as at most risk of extreme fuel poverty. In conclusion, the panel is asked to note that good progress continues to be made on the programme during 25-26 to help alleviate fuel poverty in West Lothian, and that the proposed programme for next financial year will initially focus on Knightsbridge and Livingston in line with existing criteria. And I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Marjorie. Any questions for Marjorie? Any comments? No. Well, with that, that's the last paper. Can I just thank everybody? There's a work programme. And to note this paper, the recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Agreed, Johnny? Okay. And nothing to left but and we'll just note the work plan. Okay? I can just thank everybody for being here today. Thanks very much for your contributions.